special Harcourts Rata & Co auction at number 24 Edith Street in Epping. My name is Robert. Ozzimo and I proudly represent the company of Harcourts Rata & Co. Joined here today by the best team in the north, the team in blue. Should you require their advice, please feel free to approach either Andrew, Gio, Rob, and of course Mr. Leon El-Assaad, who no doubt you've met throughout the marketing campaign. Let me share with you now the following announcements, which in place have been bid and buy with absolute confidence here today. The auction will be conducted in accordance with the rules and any additional conditions that are made available for inspection before the start of the auction. The auction rules prohibit an auctioneer from accepting for a property after the property has been knocked down to the successful bidder. The vendors have a reserve price as the auctioneer will indicate bidders on request. The law prohibits false bids, prohibits major disruptions by bidders, and prohibits bidders attempting to prevent others from bidding, and provides for fines for such conduct. The rules permit for vendor bids the words I'll use during the auction to indicate that I'm making a bid on behalf of the vendor are vendor bid, and by law only I, as the auctioneer, can make a vendor bid. The contract of sale has been on display prior to today's auction. We call for a 10% deposit upon the fall of the hammer and the signing of that contract to take place here today, with the balance to be paid at settlement in 30 to 60 days time, at which time the vendor will provide the lucky buyer with vacant possession of the property. All in all, quite a straightforward contract. Everything's in there, everything is quite clear. Buyers, what a great opportunity for the first home buyers among us, and what a great opportunity for any investor looking to get into this growing market. And when we say growing market, we talk about capital growth, and it's the infrastructure that surrounds us that underpins that capital growth. As you can see, a plethora of parkland surrounding us, easy access to transport, shopping, schools, all within easy reach. The property itself immaculately presented, absolutely nothing to do. Move straight in, but first get the sold sticker up on the board. If that's your goal here today, buyers, now is your time to reserve that right. Where can I see a fair and reasonable starting bid for 24 Edith? Who'd like to start us off? Hands nice and warm in your pockets there. 530,000, a great start at 530,000 now. At 530 the bid. At 530,000, bids there in the centre at 530. At 530,000, fairly been offered now at 530. I will take the 5 at 35 and the same courtesy, sir, at 5 if you like, at 35 and 40 with a nod of the head. At 540,000. At 540,000, fairly been offered now at 540,000. At 540 the bid. At 540,000 at 45 now and 50 if you like. At 550. At 550 the bid. At 550,000, I will say that we do sell here today at 550,000. If you've come to buy, there's nowhere left to hide. You must bid me now or forever hold your peace. We're on the market. We sell at 555 now, 555. At 555 the bid. At 60 now. At 560,000. At 560,000 I'm at. At 560,000, fairly been offered now. At 562. At 562,000, bid back here, keys back here on the market and selling at 65 now. At 565,000, if you've come to buy, don't wait for me to go inside and get instructions. I will not be doing that today. We are on the market. We sell. My instructions have been sought. They have been given. They are to sell at 65. The bid's here. The keys are here. We're on the market. We sell once at 565. All done. Second call at 565, done and finished. Third, final call at $565,000 a bid, all done, all finished. Silent out at 565, no participation here, absolutely sure. At 566, at 566,000 at 70, at 570, at 500, at 67, at 567 the bid, at 567.8, at 568 now, at 568, 70 now, at 570,000, at 570 the bid, bid back here, keys back here, opportunity still with you at 71, at 571,000 now and 2 at 72, at 572, at 572,000 at 72 and a half, at 572 and a half, best response sir to a small bid's a big one at 74, at 574 now, at 574,000 and 74 and a half now, 575, at 75, at 575, small bids aren't working, sir, try a big one at 75, at 5 3/4 now, we're definitely done over here. Thank you very much for your bidding here today, at 575,000, bids here, keys here, we're selling once at 575, done, and a half now, 575 and a half, at 76, at 576 the bid, at 576,000. How about 80, sir? At 576 and a half, at 576 and a half now.
80.
And 80 now got at $580,000 a bid. Bid here, keys back in the centre at 580 now. We sell once at 80 and a half, at 580,000, 581 at 581,000, at 581 now, at 581,000. Bid back there, keys back there. We sell at 581 and a half, at 581,000 and 82 now, at 582 the bid. Small bids help the competition come along. Big bids buy property, 82 and a half, at 85 now. Bigger bid at 585 the bid, at 585,000. Fairly been offered at 585. We sell once at 585. Done. Twice. 585 the bid. Done. And 85 and a half at 586. At 586 now, the quick retort again at 586, and brick by brick we go here today at 586,000. At 586,000, fairly been offered there now. Keys there on the market, selling 586 the bid for the first call at 586. And a half now at 586 and a half. Take me to 90, sir. 87. At 87 now. At 587. At 587,000, fairly been offered. Bid back here, 87 the bid, at 587,000. What do you say, sir? How about 90? Be bold. Bid big. At 1 now, at 588. At 588, 90 got now at $590,000 a bid. At 590, bid there, keys there. Has he done enough? At 590,000. Once at 590, all done. Twice at 590,000, done. Finished for the third and final call at $590,000 a bid. All done, finished, sold and out at 90. Definitely done here. Tell me once more you're done, and I'll sell over here in the centre. Definitely done. I have your absolute best here today. It's not worth another cheeky half. 90 might be the limit there. At 500, definitely done. Thank you very much for being here today. At 590, first call, second call, third and final call, all done. All finished, sold and out. We sell, selling, selling, sold. Congratulations and well bid. Please join me in congratulating our purchaser and our vendors here today. You've just witnessed another successful Harcourts Rata & Co auction. Have a great weekend. See you again soon. Thank you. Well done, mate. Well bid. Congratulations.